out in southern Ohio, deer is pretty good business.
Oh, yeah.
Too, because they're corn fed.
Corn fed, yeah.
And so standing in the lion's cage with this lion looking at her.
Yeah.
They're idiots. What? Then they're gonna blame the wild animal for.
Well, it's like that kid that fell in the, or jumped in the. Finer than frogs here.
Pretty excited?
Finer than frogs here.
Finer than frogs here.
Pretty damn fine.
And it looks like some of you have a copy of this.
Here's more. Clayton?
I'll give it back to you.
You ready? You did your homework, you have one. You're gonna give it
Oh,
back
this
to
is
me?
the old one.
I have
That's
one.
the old one, gotcha.
I have one. Do you want me to get it back to you? Because I got it all scribbled up.
Yes, you can, or we're gonna go through some certain things. David's not gonna be here.
I waste of time going over what I did.
Thank you. Should I leave this for Dave? Sure. Give one for you. There we go.
Mike grabbed one.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Dallas. No, you didn't.
Look at that garden up there.
Who comes up?
It was nice this year, it's very nice.
So you want to have that.
Well,
It'll be a hard winter.
do they have to approve it in the executive? I
Yeah, I forgot to print one for myself.
Bring it on.
All the old wives did say it's gonna be a hard winter. Lots of woolly caterpillars.
I was gonna say caterpillars with 3 stripes.
All the acorns were loaded, the cedar trees have a bunch of little berries on them, the garden, or the vegetables on them, they had a great crop, wild apples were really heavy.
We call him Dave, I meant Steve. Hi, Steve. Called you Dave, you pick up on that.
Okay, we've got a quorum, we got everybody here, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Ball?
Here.
Mr. Barron's absent. Mr. Christensen?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Lautner? Absent. Mr. Noonan?
Here.
Mr. Popa?
Here.
Mr. Travis? Absent. Mr. Russell?
Here.
Mr. Gilman?
Here.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? This meeting is just to talk about the 5-year plan.
Move to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Gilman, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We've got an agenda, public comment, no one's here. All right, now to the discussion of the 5-year plan.
Okay, so I sent you, or gave you guys out a copy of what is, virtual, ready to go up on for public comment. So what we're gonna do today is just walk through quickly what's in this. You saw some of it last time. The focus today, after we just did the framework, is to look at the goals and objectives section and the action program. So I won't spend a lot of time on the other pieces and parts, other than to kind of give you just a sense of what was added since we were here last, to get the document polished up and ready for carousal by public. Because what happens by tomorrow, the plan is out for official 30-day public comment. We'll take some input from today. If there's little tweaks, we'll do it, and then that'll be available online and available up at the office, I believe. And I don't know if we're going to put it anywhere else.
On our web.
On the website, right. So Any physical places, probably not. So that gives the public an ability to know that, one, you're working on it, two, that the information in here is moving towards a set of recommendations vis-a-vis the goals and objectives and action program that this committee will make to the county board. And the target being after a public session in November, that the board will receive this from you as a recommended document for submittal to the DNR and do a public hearing and pass a resolution to submit it to the DNR. So that's kind of the timeline. And then the DNR gets on it, gets a hold of it. If they have any questions or comments or sees any deficiencies, we give them that information. And by the goal being by March 1, it'll be approved by the DNR, which makes you eligible to reapply for grants or apply for grants. They'll probably actually have that done in February. So we actually have a month of extra time built into that spring approval step with the DNR. But the goal being to try and get this approved by the board this year so that there is that kind of extra time just in case there's a hiccup and maybe the board has to approve it in January for some reason. So we still have time. So, all right, so last time we went through, I had all the boards here, we have them here again. It's been a little windy out there, so it's going to get a little bit wind-torn, but all the plans now that we talked about last time for each of the facilities are in here. So first of all, if we go to section 1, and it's all paginated, so on page 5, we start what's called the community description. And we start to reference our maps that are more on the countywide basis that are inside this part of the document. So you can read this at your leisure, but it basically goes through sort of the nuts and bolts of what the county is comprised of. Some of this is in your land use plan, the master plan for the county, but we try to track things and put things in here that were a good reference for recreation. So like if you start the page through just the road systems, this is a land use map that talks about ownership and land use land cover. But as you get into page 8, 9, you start talking about some of the recreational things, like all the trail system development that's been occurring in the county, from the Heritage Trail to the Heritage Route on 22.
Any cleanup can happen at any point?
Yes. Yeah, if you see something, mark it on there now and just let us know. You can fax us pages, email pages. We're editing this constantly, so what we've done is we keep on formatting. We're trying to get the format and everything working, like all the pagination now working and all the different components into the document, but there's still editing that is ongoing. It'll be ongoing for a while.
I know Laurel's been doing some work. I've got her
Yep.
copy and I've been looking at it. So
Okay.
Here's some cleanup. And we may have some brighter, newer, fancier little maps to put in. Is that something?
Absolutely. I mean, we've asked planning for maps. We've put the maps in that came from the last document, because most of them haven't changed too much. But if there's something else that you see as a good reference to go in here, let us know.
Okay.
We're hopefully not going to modify hugely. In fact, some of them may go into the appendix, which we can add as supplemental. But if it's critical to be in here, that would be fine.
And any of the cleanup stuff can happen. Okay.
Yeah. It's a draft document. I mean, this timeline, honestly, for this shorter period, normally about a 6-month period is taken for this, so there'd be many more times to sit and draft. I don't think you guys want to go through and see us at 6 or 7 meetings, so we're trying to expedite getting to the meat of the matter, which is what do you want to do in your parks? You know, this stuff is kind of the necessary background in the document for the DNR sake and for public, but the meat of the matter is goals and objectives and action steps that help you achieve the things you're trying to do in the parks. That's the tail end of this, the real important part of this document. But the rest of this is for others to understand what's in the county. If they were to come to this, move to this county, live here, and then, hey, what's available for recreation? This is one way they can learn about it. So that's the inventory section, mostly about, we took out all the demographic part of this. It's not required anymore. It's handled in your master plan, so we don't talk about population stuff at all in here. That's all handled in the nauseam and other documents. Page 15 we did a draft this last time it's been edited, is the administrative structure, which is required to show how you are going about the business of doing recreation planning and implementation in the county. So this one, what's new on this one from last time is we added the 3 subcommittees for the parks. The maintenance staff is in there with a maintenance director above. Citizen volunteerism was not on the last part of this, but I think it's an important component of what's going on in your park system right now. And then contracting and vendors is another important part that supports what the county does. So that kind of shows the structure of things. There's a little bit of description down below about other agencies in the county like road commission, drain commissioner, planning commissions that work on things. And then on the following page, on page 16, we need to get that budget, your current fiscal budget, plugged into that holding place there. I didn't have that at the time.
There's a budget page here.
Okay, perfect.
It's the projected, the approved 2020 budget.
For 2020, perfect. So we'll get the copy of that and put that in there. That will complete that little part. And then we're on to what we call the inventory. So this is where we started doing, as you recall, the on-site meetings and walking through and looking at the properties. We hadn't done a lot on the other 2 properties other than Veronica Valley up until this project started. So we met and did some work on each of them. But this inventory is for the entire county and not just your facilities. So what we did utilize, past the front of this and toward the back, there's a series of charts. All right, this will look familiar to you. This was in the last plan, however, we have been updating it where we can and add information into it. Because those are all the facilities that are in, excuse me, say the village, first of all, federal, state, and then what's into the villages and the municipalities in the township, in the county. One thing that we would do at this point, excuse me, is to send this list to the respective townships and ask them if there's anything we're missing. For example, I know since this was written and we haven't updated it, Empire worked on some pickleball courts, you know. Certain places have added things to their park description, to their parks that are not in here. It's a good time to catch those things and just ask them for that input. We have updated the ones that we've worked on. Herman Park, Glen Arbor Park, some of these have been updated, but not all of them. So, but back to the first page of that section. What we focused on we're describing the 3 facilities. This first of all on page 18 is the map of all that. And that came from GPS or GIS here through COG. That'd be a nice map to get a little better. When we wrote the scope for this, we didn't spend a lot of time or effort and budget on mapping, so this is sufficient for now. But this map resides with those agencies and could be updated and should be a working element of the GIS folks here in the planning department. But at any rate, that references right into those numbers on there correlate to that chart, a series of
So you've got that
places.
in digital format.
We have this as a PDF. We do not have it as a GIS, as a editable map.
Klaus, our GIS is actually housed with equalization, and I had a conversation with
Yeah.
Rob, our tech.
Yeah.
And I let him know that it's always hard for them to think of doing something on this scale in such a short turnaround time. He
Right.
said, as long as we get it before December approval,
Mhm.
that would be good.
Oh, yeah, I mean, what we would ask is this map, or like this key map, could be replicated by them pretty easily.
And he said he can do that.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, there's nothing we would add to this, it just needs to be cleaned up, because for whatever reason, and I haven't called, not Sarah anymore, the Networks Northwest folks to see who could maybe dig this out of their archives in their database, because it's there. It's just that neither Trudy nor, they couldn't find these files.
Right.
Because they weren't produced here. I think the COG produced them at the time.
I think
So-
Rob can do a pretty reasonable facsimile.
I think so. It's all there in the layers in the database, so
It'll look lots better.
it'll look a lot better,
He's tied
exactly.
into the assessing program, so they have up to the minute information.
Right. So, but what we focused on was really, and these are in order both in the inventory and later on in the goals and objectives section, in section 5, is the 3 parks. So in Miles Kimberly here, we did an inventory, we updated the accessibility rating, which is an MDNR standard. If you look at the bottom of page, where does it balance? Page 17, the very first paragraph, there's a last sentence here says, each facility in the following inventory has been compared to the 2010 ADA standards for accessible design, and at a minimum given a rating from 1 to 5, where 1, none of the existing elements meet 2010 ADA standards, 2 meaning some, etc., most, 4, 5 being the worst, or best. So rating from 1 to 5, we did that for each of the parks. And as you might expect, Miles Kimberly has some ADA accessibility things, but others are not, so we rated it at a 3. And then so we'll continue through that. So we do an inventory of what's out there. We try to add to this the kind of some conditional information, like the condition of the ball fields or the condition of the paddocks, just for reference, but that could be more deeply investigated. Then as you go on to page 20 and 21, we talked about the livestock arena, the across the northern parcels, which wasn't really included to a great degree in the last plan, nor were the barn or the poor farm garden or the community garden that's across there. And then we put a lot more information about the property in here, more pictures. The property boundary is delineated for the entire parcel, down in and including the wooded area to the south. Then on page 24 and 25, sort of the old land use map, that's the existing conditions map on page 24. And then on page 25 and 26, we took the dusty plan, okay, dusted it off, and we did some notations and numerically put some suggestions for what the master plan could evolve to based on the discussion last time. Now this is fairly small in here, so, and we realized that. We put some additional pictures and references. And then if you flip to page 28 and 29, you get the full thing on the north part of the south parcel. So you can read that and reference the key to the top. So we think this is a little better for usability, for people to kind of get a flavor for what could change or what at least you're thinking about changing in this. Now, this is a good place for me to say that if you take this section on Miles Kimberly and you go to section 5 in the document further back, the first section of goals and objectives is Miles Kimberly Park. So what we tried to do then is take that information and compile some goals and some lists of action objectives for those goals for that park.
What page?
I'm on page 63. So this is the first step in how to get this park plan updated, right? And one of the first objectives here is, in one of these goals, is to create an updated plan as part of one of your steps. So we'll go through those here shortly. So that's how this works. The inventory feeds directly into section 5, and you can reference them back and forth. So if you go back to the inventory page, after Miles Kimberly on page 30 is Old Settlers Park. All right, we did the same thing. We went through, made some general historical references, did the facilities, what's included, did an accessibility rating. We rated that 2 there. It has some barrier-free accessibility pieces, but there's a lot that could be updated and upgraded. Minor things, but important things for current ADA standards. There's a bunch of pictures, page 31, 32, there's a little caption of the map, the plan that was rendered up, some more references to existing conditions out there. And there's more images in the inventory that we did. And then on page 34 and 35, we did the big plan again. And the big plan shows some captions that we added to it and some graphics we added to this plan. For now, it's probably sufficient to use for doing your improvements or your goals and objectives in action. It could be updated, but I don't know that it's critical to update. So that map, again, is for bigger, easier to read reference, and it is referenced in the goals and objectives section back in section 5. And there are goals and objectives and action steps there. And those two parks, Miles Kimmerly and Old Settlers, we're hoping to spend some time with you today and go through those. Dave's group, the last park here, if you flip to now page 36, is Veronica Valley. Veronica Valley, some history, some background, accessibility ratings. We rated that at a 1, and that's kind of expected. There's only a little bit out there that's really accessible. Probably the porta potty there is barrier-free. There aren't any sidewalks. There isn't any accessibility there of any formal set. So that's one of the reason we're actually doing that also is to support your grant application, because that's one of the major goals of the Veronica Valley Trust Fund grant is to make it more accessible. Then there's a bunch of pictures, obviously. One nice step that could be made, and we sometimes do, haven't had time to do yet, is reference these pictures to the map. And so you could see these views and reference it, little things. It takes a lot of time to do. We haven't done that yet. On page 38, there's the facility boundary. And then some more information on activities and facilities, what's included out there. There's some seasonal images of stuff going on there. I think important for Veronica Valley was to show that it's multi-seasonal, because that's a really big asset of that park. It's used for skiing. Honestly, same thing for Miles Kimmerly. It's used for wintertime activities too. And not everyone knows that those are out there and available and maybe being groomed for use. And then we put in on page 40, 41, 42, 43, the maps that came from the grant from all the efforts that were done the last few years. So the updated master plan work for the whole facility, and then on page 41 and 42, 42 and 43 is the enlargement of the grant graphic that went in for the core project the trust fund application went in on. All right, and then so forth. So that was the 10-minute quick and dirty what's in here kind of thing. You guys have questions? Making you frustrated, tired, exhausted, excited? What do you got? What do you want to say?
Nothing.
Nothing?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Enlighten me. What does this mean?
What do you think?
Moraines.
Moraines are glacial formations. Moraines are the
Piles of dirt.
like, you know what whaleback is? Whaleback
That's
is a moraine.
So are sand dunes.
It's a glacial formation, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the drumlin drumlin's a dome hill that the glaciers form. Like I call it the scalp, right behind Tom's West Bay, where all that housing is. That's one of the last drumlins that the glaciers made on Grand Traverse Bay.
Okay.
And now it's a housing development.
Thank you. No, it's a
Not that I
house.
have-
It's a house,
Not
not a
that
housing.
I have an opinion about that one. So yeah, those are a good point. I don't have a glossary of terms.
I just never saw it.
Now you know. Now you're enlightened.
You learned something today.
I did. I learned something every day.
That's always a goal. Okay, so that's generally background information that sets us up for a couple things. But in between the next thing, there's a section 4 that we talk about public input. So in the background since last time, we've been coordinating with the county on what are called public notices. So we had a public notice we prepared and drafted back and forth with the clerk's office to issue for a 30-day public comment period, which this document will now become available tomorrow. to the extent it goes through section 5. The section 6 goals or master action program is what we're still working on during that 30-day public comment period. So we have time, but only about that much time before we then, as a committee, your committee would make a recommendation to the board for them to consider it at their December meeting. And then in between there, in November, as we talked about, we're going to do a public open house here. So we have that drafted as a notice, and we'll go out for people to come in here, and I can't remember the time frames, but I think we talked about 2 2-hour blocks of time, from 3 to 5 and 5 to 7,
Yeah,
something like that. So we're gonna nail that down, and that date's been set. You wanna reiterate those dates, are they in here? Yeah.
Page?
Page 61. So, first of all, public input. The event here is on the 18th.
November 18th?
Mm-hmm. Down below, key public meeting inputs, basically all of your Parks and Rec meetings are listed and documented from a official meeting standpoint, August, October, and then November. Currently, I don't know if we have a date for a regular meeting.
No, that's one of the 2 dates that we ended up eliminating, but
Right.
just with the thought that if you had to hold a special session, you could.
Correct. So the reason that's in pink there is that there's one action that you need to take in November other than the public input, and that is you probably as a committee would officially say we vote to recommend this draft go to the county board in the form, right, for their December consideration. So in some way you need to do a meeting in November that causes that to happen. So, and Laurel's insinuating, because there is no official meeting on the calendar, that date could be set as a special. It doesn't have to be long, but does need to be, and I would recommend it happen right after the public input session, because you'll have comment back from the public, and you will have an ability to go, oh, okay, let's pass it on to the board. So sometime after the 18th, maybe, before Thanksgiving though. So, however that needs to be plugged in, maybe after opening day.
So the times on the public input day are?
I knew you would ask me that, and unfortunately, let me have to check my phone here.
Looks like the public input is already several days after.
After what, opening day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's during hunting season, obviously, though.
We'll all have hung ours.
Yeah, come on, if you haven't gotten them the first few days, right? That's the way it goes?
That's something during a blizzard.
I'm never gonna see them either.
When the big bugs come out.
Actually, I have, no, it's 19th. We gotta double check that 18th date.
Oh, deer season open.
Devil, do you have that date,
14th?
Laurel? I'm sorry, for the public open house?
Are you picking
Why
them?
not?
Yeah, we're done chopping, shelling. And they're getting their fill, for sure. And no baking is, quite a difference.
Do you mean the hearing or no?
The open house. Do you
I
have
don't
that?
have those dates, no.
Oh,
Try
sorry.
to eat more.
Oh, really?
People weren't feeding them that much.
Think about how many tons of bait are out in the woods by this time on a normal year. And I'm not saying that there's none out there, I know there's probably some, but it's significantly. And I
You can come in here and kill more.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Well, there was quite a few farmers, they were just doing big, small guys.
Yeah,
I mean, they.
It's a big
on-
business.
On the side.
Yeah.
A lot of these little farmers, they were just doing big, that's all they were doing.
my uncle sells it, they're still selling some, obviously, but, they were making some pretty good side money,
Yeah.
bagging it and selling it.
Yeah. all the spots that had a little, baby tractor in the front or.
Yeah.
And a
Pile of sugar beets.
Yeah, a pile of sugar beets. And, that they disappear in a hurry.
Yeah.
And then there'd be another dump, and then they disappear.
The hearing I have for December 10th. You have that, is that the break? Okay. So, you know what? I know why I don't know. We haven't set that date yet. Last time, we hadn't set that date. But we need to have it happen after November 16th and before December 10th. But we haven't set that date.
So we have a public input date,
We have a public input date to set.
and the times for that?
We talked about trying to do in this room 2 different blocks of time to have it sort of be an open house format. So we'd have these plans out, couple of us, 1 or 2 tag teaming from your committee for like a 3 to 5, and I think we talked about a 5 to 7, 2 blocks of time to give enough people to come either before, right after school, before practices, or after work, but after dinner, kind of things. So as far as the dates go, we were proposing sometime during the week of the 18th of November, because Thanksgiving's the following week. We can't do it Monday, because I'm doing one in Glen Arbor. Tuesday, the 19th, but we could do the 21st. We could do Wednesdays, but Wednesdays a lot of times is a church night for a lot of groups.
Why don't we look at the 21st? For a hearing date?
That would be for the open house.
Open.
The hearing is on the 10th
Of
of December, because it correlates before the board.
the meeting,
Yeah.
So we just separate that time.
Sorry,
The 21st should be fine for me. Should be.
And then if we could get a couple of committee members interested in coming to at one of those blocks of time, 3 to 5 or 5 to 7. So that
Is that
we're,
a Monday, Casey?
Thursday.
that's a Thursday.
A
So
week before
Thursday's the
Thanksgiving?
21st?
Correct.
Yes.
Because my wife's having surgery. So she'll be incapacitated for like 2 weeks.
Thanks.
That doesn't work for me, but that doesn't matter.
No.
But I could always run up for a special meeting to approve it.
Well, this isn't,
I know, but after.
yeah.
Yeah, you could either do it, the point of that is it has to be posted for that special, so. How much lead time do you need for the special meeting to be posted?
18 hours.
Okay, so
But we try to do it at least 24.
yeah, I mean, whether or not you do it that day, because we'll be done at 7, you could do it right after that, or you could do it another day.
So.
You'd
we-
have to have
We need a
staff-
quorum on the 21st?
No. In fact, you shouldn't, because it's not an official, it's a public open house, but you don't want to have a quorum, because you haven't held a special meeting. So you'd really only want to do a special meeting for purposes of recommending the plan go to the board. Hi.
So consensus to hold it on the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I mean, yeah.
Time?
So we talked about doing a block from 3 to 5, and then doing another block, right, or 3 to 4:30, and then do another block from 5 to 7, something like that, 5 to 6:30. That's enough time, an hour and a half each time. So what it would be as a format is people can just come and go during that window of time and chat with us or commissioners about the draft plan. And well, quite honestly, it's only as good as the effort to get people to come. So, we'll put together a flyer, we'll try to get the information to you, you kind of talk it up, get it on the website, get it in the newspaper. So there's other things that have to happen to let people know, other than this boring little notice that there's a public comment period. Something interesting that gets people, stick them up on bulletin boards, stuff like that happens. In this case, because I think it's an opportunity to get more people to kind of come in to discuss things. So the subcommittees know groups that are interested in the parks that you're working on, and I think that's a great opportunity to get a flyer to their chair people, to the lake associations, to the groups that are supporting Sutwood Settlers, the groups that are supporting Miles Kimmerly, so we get some representation of the stakeholders that want to know about what might happen. Thanksgiving is the 28th.
So we still need to set a Parks and Rec meeting to make a recommendation, is that right?
Yeah, in some way you need to formally push this onto your board, and it won't happen today. So it's got to happen sometime between now and December 10th. Enough in time, and actually fairly ahead, because if I'm not mistaken, it's got to go to the pre-meeting meeting the week before the board meets.
Yeah, the public hearing for this will be held during the executive board session.
So on the 5th, a week before.
No,
Oh.
that is the first meeting of the.
Oh, okay, that's the executive board meeting, not the full board meeting. So that's the public hearing.
Right.
And then the following week,
The
it
board will
goes to the
formally
board.
approve.
Okay, that's just a process I'm not familiar with. You're the only community that does that. That's great, but it just did, okay, but still, since that's going to the executive board, it needs to be before the 10th.
So why don't we have the public input session before our November 20th Parks and Recreation meeting?
Well,
We're
we
not
don't
having
technically
November
have a
meeting.
November meeting.
You don't have one, that's why we're,
It's on the 20th on my calendar too, but I just did all of the months. But technically we don't, right?
We talked about it in January, and I suggested eliminating July and November because there are always conflicts and trouble getting a quorum. And if you had to hold a special session, you always had that opportunity.
so, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to do it the day before you do the public open house, just because it gives one more chance to talk about what's gonna happen that night and organize ourselves, or the 20th or the 19th, whatever works in there. And like I said, I don't think that's a long meeting, it's probably an hour.
The 20th might not work too badly because Thanksgiving's the following week.
And that's a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Thanksgiving's not till the 28th.
Right.
But some support staff may be taking that Thursday and Friday off, just so you know.
No.
Oh, you were talking about doing it on the 27th?
That's the 21st. The 20th still works.
Right.
Right.
20th is
Okay,
probably.
let's go for the 20th.
Okay.
At 3 o'clock?
Yeah. What about, is earlier okay with everybody on the 20th?
Yeah.
Yep. You
I'm
wanna do
flexible.
1 o'clock again?
Yeah.
20th of,
November.
September.
Don't help.
1 o'clock, you said?
Yes.
1 o'clock here, send that channel.
So that's a special session?
Correct.
Did I hear you didn't need a quorum? You do need a quorum.
You do if
Yeah,
you need to
special
approve
session.
something.
Correct, but we don't need a quorum on the
Yes.
21st
Oh,
for
okay.
this open
Public
house.
open house.
I'm guessing I'm not gonna be here.
Now, is there any mechanism for commissioners to vote on an action without being here?
No.
They have to physically be at the meeting, okay,
Yes.
just curious.
Well, it's only been on that, doesn't it?
It's a world of technology out there,
Yeah.
like you can call in on.
So we're gonna
FaceTime.
vote on this thing before we see the public input?
no,
Public input's the 18th.
we don't need to vote on it.
Well-
You just said the public input's the 21st.
No, the public open house, which is part of the public input, is on the 21st. Public input is provided for 30 days starting tomorrow. And we will have the information back from the public comment period by the 17th.
Okay.
So we'll have information from that, which is a good point. We can talk about what we get in, what we have received from public comment, and then you do your meeting, And normally, I've told this to Laurel, the public comment doesn't have to, it's not like you take someone's comment and go, oh, we gotta get that into page 7 on, at paragraph 3. It's, you put it in the appendices and you put it as advisory information, and then it can be incorporated if it's pertinent to a decision or an action step into the plan as it gets finished up. So, yeah, so I think it's good sequence. I think that'll work out great.
So
When
you're
are you gonna start the public comment?
Tomorrow.
So the comments I have for you, you gotta get in before then?
We will make any edits that we get today as quickly as we can, but know that the public comment period is specifically about a draft. So it means it is changing, and comments that are critical we could make right away, but we can also use the 30 days to do more editing to the document. That's not, if it's not wholesale changes. I mean, I think at this point, we're trying to whittle things down, right? And make editorial edits and maybe add a map or take out a chart or add a chart, but we're not trying to go, oh, we're gonna buy, 400 acres over here, and that's not in the plan yet.
All the ones I have are all editorial.
Okay, so if we don't have any major changes that we have to make tomorrow, we'll make the edits for sure, just clean it up. We are doing it currently. And if there's anything major, let us know soon, because we would like to get it into the document. Like if you got something, we want to put a Ferris wheel up in Leland that we didn't know about,
The monkey flower still isn't in here.
I know, and I have a really good picture of that, so good point. We'll get that noted in the Old Settlers Park.
I think I never treated it.
I thought we were all kind of, so kids would walk on it.
Okay.
So people wouldn't come
Maybe
and
this
take
was
it up or
after.
something, I can't
Okay.
remember.
PDF, so I did.
Headbands for weddings.
So you proposed a special session for the 20th, the day before the open house, which will be on the 21st, and you're saying 1 PM.
That's what this
Yes, correct.
group was
Okay.
thinking, 1 PM on the
Well,
20th.
here's the other swing. When you think about the people that can't be here at 1, would you rather hold it a little later so that Melinda and Kyle can both attend? I'm suspecting that if it's after 3, they have a better chance of attending.
Yeah, we're gonna be fighting for a quorum,
You might
right?
be.
You might not do that.
I will be here on the 20th.
I'm guessing I won't be, I'm pretty sure.
Later's fine,
Now, a special session, you have to set your agenda ahead of time, because it's not like a regular session where you can add and subtract. So this will probably be the only thing on that agenda.
So I would say review public comment received for that agenda item, and discuss passing the draft resolution on, or pass draft plan onto the board, recommendation to pass the plan onto the board for their review or their approval. And approving.
Well, we always leave it up, open for the board where we have discussion, potential action, and then the action item would be 5-year general plan. And at that point, you can draft and craft whatever type of motion you want to recommend.
Okay, whatever language is necessary, but if you say it has to be on the agenda, whatever language is necessary to let them do that.
Well, you're limited with which action items you list. You can't add or subtract from the agenda. It's set
Right.
for specials.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So what would you recommend they say then for that meeting?
It's gonna be discussion, potential action, 5-year recreation plan.
Okay, it can be that generic? That's
Yes, it
great.
can.
That's great. That's all we need to
Yep.
include then.
3 o'clock?
We'll be about
3 o'clock's fine.
schedule.
So we got 53 on the 20th.
So we're
On the
back to
20th,
3.
it's 3 now?
Now we're changing it to 3, yep.
We can make it 8 o'clock at night if you want.
I'm asleep
No,
by
I was
that, hold up.
trying to figure out getting my son.
8 in the morning?
8 at night, I'm asleep.
3 o'clock? Does that work
Yep.
for you? Okay.
Yep.
3 o'clock then on the 20th. And then Laurel's going to do the posting for the special meeting notice. Please. Yes, sir.
The nice summary of all of the villages and townships. The golf course in Northport is now a village facility.
Okay.
So could you move that to a village?
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, because of the way we wrote this scope, we didn't pour through this too carefully yet. But we will take anything that you find and try to edit it out.
Can you tomorrow do a little cheat sheet for the entire Parks and Commission about the dates and shoulders?
Oh, it's gonna be part of the minutes.
Right.
Could you say that one more time, Todd?
What sheet is it?
golf course?
The golf course.
You had it listed as private, or it's a village.
What page are you referencing? Sorry, sir.
Where'd you have?
North border.
49.
Page 51 there, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve,
So
clerk's
now
office
we ought to
issues
list
the
as
notices.
58.
The clerk's office will be issuing a meeting
Northport
notice,
Creek.
so that
Oh,
will.
yeah, okay, good. Sort of over and get into the village heart.
I don't see a golf course.
You don't have it.
Oh, we don't
Oh,
have it. I see.
gotcha.
That's the new golf course.
Right.
Okay, I was looking for something that changed names. All right, sorry. It's called Northport Creek?
Yep.
And that's owned by the village.
Nice little 9-hole.
Yeah, that was Bill
Accounts.
Collins.
I'm sure glad we didn't tackle this as internally.
Oh, we'd be here for 3 days.
3 years.
Do you know what street that's on, Ty? Or the access is, by chance? Just
Pardon?
locationally, do you know where you access that property? What street it's off of?
Seventh Street.
Oh, perfect, thank you. Okay, so like I said, I think one of our goals is to hook these over to the respective committees on those communities, and then give them a chance to update it, do some work on it for us. And then we'll incorporate that through the month before it gets submitted to the DNR, because it's just inventory.
Casey, how to go with you?
With what? Haven't met with him yet.
Okay.
Klaus?
Good segue though. Yes, sir.
There's a few things near Casey that I wanted you to know. The US VR 35 designation that runs through the county. It's a,
I was gonna talk to him last week.
The bike route?
yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Deal with
Yeah, we can
the-
put that in appendix.
Right.
Oh,
And just to
somewhere?
verify that you have all the correct lakes, I found a printout because you're picking up information that was probably incorrect before. One said Mowie's Lake, and there's no such lake. It's Maui's Lake. And I don't know if that's an accurate listing, but there might be some.
Yeah, again, we're
You know.
translating from previous plans, some of that
Yeah.
information, and yeah, we don't want to keep the errors, so we're
Yeah.
catching them where we can. But if you know something, like if you guys go through that list of lakes that's in the inventory section and you see something that's amiss, but let's get that one.
And I
down
don't know
low
if,
as well.
for sure, but M22 is in the process or has been approved as a scenic byway.
Oh, it's,
So that's probably worth noting.
8th Street.
say it again, sorry?
8th Street.
No, I got two people telling me
Oh.
something, sorry.
M22 is in the process or has been recognized as a scenic byway.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot, and like I told you, I mean, Leelanau County is honestly mile for mile of land mass. The Ottawa County in Michigan is about the only other one that I've seen as much recreational opportunity in from a county standpoint, from all sectors, public, you know, from federal, state, county, township, village. There's a lot of things to do in Leelanau County from a recreational standpoint, which probably is why, and we should get that statistic in somewhere, the health, there's a statistic about general health.
Yeah.
I forget where it came out
Yeah.
earlier in the year, that talk about health of Leelanau County residents. And so it's compared pretty high compared statistically, so.
That's why the tourists are like
Till
flies
summer
in
when they
winter,
come
in
here.
summertime.
Until we start eating our holiday victuals, and then we get bad again. Let's see,
Why?
so where's that lake you were talking about, Laurel?
It says Mowie's, but it
Which
should
page?
be Maui.
57.
Sorry. is it-
Instead of MOO, it should be MOUGEY.
Moogie. Where's that at?
No, Mia.
M-O-D?
MOU.
M-O-U.
Move.
E-Y-S?
GEYS.
Never even heard of it.
Never heard of it? Okay, got it, thank you.
It's very full at this point in time.
A lot, all of these are very full. Okay, let's have a little fun here with goals and objectives. And too bad Dave's not here, because who was on the Veronica Valley board? I'm sure you were, Mr. Popa. You can represent that discussion a little bit, if you would, sir, on the page, section 5, starts.
65.
65. So what this does, and the purpose of this section, is to establish a goal numbered now, and to associate action steps lettered, so that ultimately we can put the alphanumeric code for that into the action program and build out a plan to move forward on. So if you look at page 65, and the committee met and tried to, first of all, take the list that was there and prioritize it numerically. But then they did the harder step, which was to try to plug it into the action program. So I didn't put that in the plan yet, but I have a copy of it here. And I did a little work. You can just pass this around. They took their action steps, okay?
You need copies?
If you want. This would be, I was going to try and scan this and get it over to you. And applied them, just, I'll wait till you do that and then we'll go through it. Thank you, Steve. But while he's doing that, in essence, what they did was take each goal that has some objectives under it, and then rate them from 1 to 3 or 4. Just what's a higher priority than others? Do we want to do this first? If we have time, can we do this? That's one step. But then you got to go, well, when do you want to do it? Is it important to do right off the bat in 2020? Is it a goal? Is it one of the first things that have to happen? What happens next? Could that happen in a year from now? Does it have to happen in 2020? So it gets a little more complex, and we'll show you what they came up with. It's not too bad to sort of do that. And so in essence, they had about a 3-year working plan that went through to achieve goal 1. Whoops, there's an error there. No, that's what's others. Goal 1, and then it continues on page 66. Goal 2 and goal 3, and goal 4, and goal 5, and goal 6. There are a lot more there's a lot of detail, which you would expect because of all the planning that's been going on. And some of them are little tasks, and some of them are bigger objectives and tasks. The big one, obviously, was resubmit. The number one goal was resubmit the Natural Resource Trust Fund grant application in April of the year coming up, and to reapproach the board to do that process. So it's ready. It didn't go in last round because of this thing not being updated, but it's ready to go. So the action of putting it back online and submitting it, and of course getting board approval to do that are steps that they have in their plan. So why don't we, while we're waiting for that, let's go to what I did to format Old Settlers, which is on that page 63 as well.
Old Settlers is 65.
I'm sorry, on 65. I thought, Casey, and this is no offense to the situation out there, that it was pretty straightforward. I didn't think we need to get real crazy fancy about what tweaks need to happen here, but I do think that you need to carouse these and come up with, your committee needs to come up with what's most important to do, or what's already in play. And some of them might be happening already. You know, like you talked, there's a program in action to fix this building. You know, there's definitely a need to do the same thing down the line to get the gazebo restabilized and upgraded. There's some ADA stuff. So I tried to just list out some of the basic stuff that we came up with when we walked the site and looked at it, and what we talked about out there. The major objectives: update the park plan and develop opinion of probable costs for the improvements. So we think, as designers and like architects, planners, that if you had a whole list, an action step that had costs built out for these different things you're trying to do, then you can plug them in more strategically into the requests to the budget or to your action steps to get them done by staff or whatever.
Sure.
So the plan like that is probably, to go with this would make sense. The second one is update development, park operations and maintenance plan. Is there an operations and maintenance plan? I think we talk about it with Scott, that he's got kind of a game plan, but maybe taking a look at that and going, what does the new implications indicate for operations and maintenance? And are there anything new that he needs help on, either by his own forces or by vendors to help them get stuff done to maintain that park? And then the third objective is, I see there's an A and a B there, we'll fix that. Define the further enhanced spaces unique to the park. Define and further enhance. So that's really what capital improvements do you want to make? From that set of objectives, I wrote those out.
Klaus, when you talk develop opinion, are you talking about receiving estimates or?
So when I say opinion of cost,
Steve.
that's our legal way of saying cost estimate, which can be generated by asking someone for a quote to do something, or if it's a design thing like, oh, we need to build parking, you can ask someone to come up with a cost to figure it out. What is it going to be? We do that, someone else can do that, whatever happens to make that work out. So you're going to pass those out, sir? Thank you. So I think that's pretty simple, and I was going to take a crack. We already had kind of thought about pecking order here, but I think that committee has a pretty targeted set of things. Unless I'm missing something big, that's what I kind of have there.
It looked good to me, I looked at it today.
Okay, so we can jump back to that, but let's go back to Veronica Valley a second. So what you have is what the committee did on the left and typed in there. We'll prepare that from the stuff that Steve and, I'm sorry, Steve, you were maybe involved in that conversation, I don't know.
I met with
Because you know a lot about that.
quite a few of the Veronica
Yeah.
meetings, not all of them, but quite a few of the committee meetings.
And obviously Ms. Popa and then Dave worked on these. So this is exactly what I was hoping would happen, is they took the references and the goals and objectives and applied them to this chart. What I did then was I said, all right, what are some other particulars that we can start to fill in to make this accomplishable, or a set of marching orders, really. So they prioritized, and we could rearrange these to go in order if we want to, but that's fine. For 2020, the big one is apply for the grant. We already know they're working on weed control issues. I don't know the budgets. I took a swag at those. I'd like to get those numbers updated. There should be some kind of a mitigation objective or plan there. I see that being possibly through the partners, like DNR folks and whoever does the weed control, to come up with a strategy, again, to have the numbers available for future to maintain the ponds.
Yeah, I know that Heather Hettinger is teed up to work on this once the fall frantic fishing season is done.
Yeah.
And she's been thinking about those weeds all along, and anyway.
There's a goal there, 6C, fourth one down, to start discussing possibility of 2% grant matches, which is something we promised the county board would be done to help supplement funding for the Veronica Valley grant application. You know, yeah.
And we just voted, I think, on this, there's a group that's, or we're gonna vote on this, maybe
We're gonna vote on it
later
today.
today, yeah, there's a group that's, works with young people and is willing to provide the group to work on invasive species and do the grant application for the 2%.
Oh, great.
We'll see that later today.
Okay.
Bill Watson is leading the group. He used to be with Seeds, but it's a new group now.
Yeah, no, Bill.
And he's working, so.
Good.
So we've got a balance here.
Great. I mean, and that's what this is about, is now you have these things that you can prioritize them, and then who out in the township has a passion for it and could help supplement what you're doing, because obviously this committee can only do so much. The county's only going to allocate so much resource and money, so it's how do you get people engaged in doing things that are important to them. Cross-country skiing, or if it's Miles Kimberly, how did you get North Storm doing the work out there more, you know, they pretty much are paying for the maintenance of that soccer field out there. My understanding is, I mean, they're taking care of it because it's important to them out there. So that's another segue into how volunteerism can work. So help getting that fifth one down, 8C, additional help for Bradley. I mean, the important part to that is, what does that mean? I mean, what does Bradley need? You know, does he need another part-time person? You know, he needs to define that a little bit, and that's where the O&M part of park facility planning comes into play. They can be defined. Encourage is an interesting one, because that's talking about kind of like a promotional stuff. So, you know, who are the partners there is a big one to identify. It's down the list a little bit, but it's still important to understand that that's a place people could ski. Maintenance. So that's how this is working. I mean, this is great. This is a complicated one. Miles is going to be complicated too, more than Settlers. So I thought we could dig around with that a little bit and maybe get a straw man built for what Miles Kimberly Park priorities might be. If everyone wants to study this a little bit, or at least take the lead of the committee, I don't see any reason why we can't involve that startup. Now, one thing I am doing, because this will get complicated, is all three parks are going to end up in here, and it's going to be daunting. So one thing I could do two different things. I could make a 5-year sequence and plan like this for each park, or I've done this in Elmwood, I color code the bars, so when there's things that are interjected for Miles Kimberly or Old Settlers in 2020, they appear as a different color in the chart. And the chart's just one chart, so it'll become multiple pages. So if you're interested, if your committee's looking at stuff for Miles Kimberly Park, all you have to do is look at the orange bars. You don't have to look at the green and the blue ones. Does that sound like a way that it'll work for you?
I like the color coding myself.
Okay, so we'll do it that way.
Works better for me.
It'll look complicated, but it'll be,
Pages.
when you know what you're looking for, it'll be fine. We'll key it out. Okay.
Now, are these gonna be in the plan?
So these will be in the ultimate plan, sure. It'll be, we can put this in the draft because we have it, but we don't have.
These numbers are screwed up here, where it says goal and task, so I don't know what they're referring to on a lot of
Oh, goal and task refers to, if you go back to your goals and objectives, section 5.
Right.
So 3A, well, let's test it. Reapply for DNR grant.
Let's go to 3K.
3K,
There isn't any.
okay, let's see.
And it says 3K,
It might be a typo then.
then there's 8C. Well, page is missing for 8C, but I don't know what it said.
Okay, we just took this from what we got.
Well,
We didn't
you might have, I'm just saying.
Okay.
That whole thing needs to be circled, and
Well, we'll check it.
I don't know what Dave gave you, but none of those match.
It would have been the old
Oh,
objectives.
It might be the old list,
So
because
we
you
can
guys
record
did
it.
this before we edited the goals and objectives list a little bit, but that's fine.
All right.
We'll relocate where they are.
We've moved things
Because we've
around since
accommodated.
then. 'Cause
Okay,
we
so
got,
that
remember
whole thing needs circling, plus,
remember that we got this list just shortly before we needed to issue
I know.
it. Yeah.
and so something happened to your page 68, it's gone.
Okay. Welcome to the world of editing.
I know,
It's
just
for-
saying, if you're gonna
it's a
mail it out,
nightmare to edit documents, but we just recently moved this from Word
It's
into
okay.
publishing software because
Just-
Word doesn't work for doing a document like this.
I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you, it's daunting, but we're trying and realize it's messy right now, but we're getting it close. But we'll make we'll make a reference to check those, we'll get them back correlating with this current draft. So it'll change a little bit, but I think priorities and the sequences, we'll still be able to figure that out quickly. So I thought what you were asking, Dave, was, is that going to appear in the plan that goes with public comment?
Is it?
The goal is to have the goals and objectives, section 5, as it exists in this draft, out to public. This one, not so sure yet. It doesn't have to be, because this is still a work in process. So, but by the public open house, by the time of a public comment period is up, then this could be out, right, and available. But I think we'll be able to get this in.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, this is close. I don't know if we can get from Miles Kimberly, depends on what we can accomplish here in the next 50 minutes.
So what page do you want us on?
Okay, so if you flip to, page we got now.
63.
Thank you.
And then I'll keep it total. I'll keep
Okay, and we're just going to go through these goals and objectives as I reconstituted, as I created them to go with this park plan. That's upside down. And that's in your book there, a little further down. So goal 1, provide an upgrade to the facility for people enjoying passive aspects and necessary upgrades of support facilities for the park. I should say passive recreation aspects. This is really how to press it. So what I tried to do between goal 1 and 2 was separate sort of passive use stuff, trails and support stuff, from the sports stuff, just to make it some level of separation in the goals. And you'll see why. So this one's about passive. It says, work with staff and volunteers to reconfirm trail and pathway locations and needs for accessibility improvements. Determine best location for UA family-style restrooms, future ones, right? And consider O&M needs, I should spell that out, operation and maintenance needs. And consider expanded parking needs. So this is about access and moving around the property. And kind of where do I go potty, where do I throw my trash, stuff like that. Simple stuff that's just about the basic function of the park. So some of the action objectives that came out of our assessment, working with Kyle out there and looking at your plans: develop a loop trail around the perimeter of the main recreational fields, which we do show in the concept graphic, roughly. Refine a wooded trail for all season use, because we talked about grooming something, right? Oh,
Yes.
C, upgrade current and develop future restroom facilities. So the restrooms right there, out there right now, there's one, it's not very good, and it doesn't meet ADA. And then you guys put out porta potties. So that part of the plan would study those locations and what they need to be. Maintain parking opportunities closer to picnic and playgrounds. So that's kind of an easy one because you already have them. But the point being that those really serve this area along the road. And I guess the question was, do you want more to serve that side of the park? Because it was in the plan before to maybe expand some parking that would service, sorry you guys all can't see this, this part of the park. That's the kind of what I would call the passive park side, picnicking, playground, there's a little bit of sports going on, volleyball, but mostly this is the passive side and this becomes the active recreation for the most part. So do or do we not expand parking, but definitely maintain parking that services people access to this stuff. Provide universal accessibility crosswalks to the parking lots and again across possibly to County Road 616. So we definitely know that there needs to be some defined crossings in the park, and we talked about the potential if this gets more use, that somebody's gonna wanna go there. And if we do think that happens, then we need a formal place that that's safe to happen with advanced warning, at least vetted, and it would happen at this road. Define central locations for kiosks on the site, relocate informational sign to that location. So right now, there's a kiosk here, and there's a sign here that has a lot of information that you actually have to be in the car to read. And those need to be consolidated and probably into a place that you can read from outside a vehicle. Upgrade play equipment and surfacing, upgrades to refurbish small picnic shelters. So that focused on that and sort of circulation objectives. Anybody? Anything horrible, bad, objectionable to be added? Clayton?
Looking good to me.
Is it good? Is this starting to get at some of the things you wanted to do from your committee standpoint that you've talked about?
I think so.
Okay, I mean, the proof will be when the plan gets updated, right, that how those
Yeah.
actually evolve. And that's goal 1A, right, probably gonna be one of the first things you do is goal 1A and 2A from this plan, because, or wherever the plan is, yeah, update the park plan. So it ends up that this plan gets a new life and a new configuration that shows the physical changes. All right, goal 2, like I said, this focuses on active recreation. With the objectives, to work with staff and stakeholders, importantly to get the stakeholders involved there, to reconfirm baseball, ball fields, play court locations, and needs for accessibility improvements. So a little segue to that is I just had a meeting with Glen Arbor Township for their rec plan update, and Rick Schoenhals is involved in the tennis court efforts with the school. He has a direct relation to how those might get evolved from a layout and planning standpoint. So that's good news, because I think that's getting some legs under it, and it's good timing, and I worked with him to develop the park in Glen Arbor, or we did. So objective 2 on page 64, determine need and best location for light concessionaire, should be LITE. What I was wondering about, on the last plan, there was a concession location indicated of some sort. True, not true, want it, don't want it, want to consider it, want to drop it. I don't know. No? Too
Yeah,
much?
I think that with the whole concession thing, our parks aren't set up to make money.
Right.
And what happens at Old Settlers, like once or maybe twice a year, there's the grub shack gets used
Special event, right.
for an event, and there's food available at those. Other than that,
Okay.
when people come, we pretty much recommend that if you're gonna have food, we don't allow sales for profit. So if you're providing food for the runners, or providing food for the kids' fish day, you're giving it away, you're not selling it.
Should we just cross that
So the
word
whole
concessionaire
idea-
off?
The whole idea of concession.
It's gonna confuse
We
everybody.
haven't been.
If you haven't gone there, then don't go
We haven't
there.
been able to go there.
Okay, then let's take it off.
Doesn't fit in any of our guidelines.
Okay, perfect. That's easy. So the action objectives below are develop a new facility site master plan. As I mentioned, goal 1A and goal 2A are the same plan, but they're dealing with two sets of. I deliberately did that because it helps us kind of think about those systems a little bit as layers on the whole plan, and then combine them. And then upgrade baseball fields based on stakeholder input. Now that statement, upgrade baseball fields, could be better as to how and what they are, right? And that has to be defined with stakeholder input. Are there two Little League fields? Does the T-ball field really go away completely? those things need to go through a design planning process, not a planning process, okay? Develop future concessionaire, that comes off, right?
Yes.
Okay. Item D, provide parking opportunities closer to the ball fields, eliminate parking along County Road 616. Upgrade tennis courts to 8 for use. I think that should say upgrade or develop new tennis courts. 'Cause I'm not
I think
sure.
it's develop new courts.
Develop new courts, just do it that way, okay. Develop tennis courts, 8 new tennis courts for use agreement with Glen Lake School. Do I need to mention that here? Does that matter here? How much do you want to mention the school in that goal?
I think it's good.
Okay,
Yeah, we
Just
were
once.
charging along and basically Glen Lake admin reset. There was and board, I think board.
Reset?
There was a reset at the admin level.
There's gonna be one in
and,
Traverse here pretty
and the
soon,
board
too.
level, right?
Yeah.
So there was a big,
It's
Big
definitely
deal.
an objective to
Big
do
change.
it.
It's back in the works.
It's an objective.
So
Because
we
Chet's
kinda-
been in touch with John Hoover.
yep, and like I said, I think from
Yeah,
the
just
local
that.
standpoint, well, Sean Hall's is involved pretty, I mean, he's not a not get it done kind of guy, so he's gonna work, he's already working the newest administration over there. Because the Glen Arbor area tennis group, as you know, Sutherland's and all those folks know they can't put all those eggs in one basket for the tennis groups that are playing. I mean, the schools practice at Glen Arbor Township Parks, which is fine, but that isn't optimal for a lot of the kids that want to play on that team. So a central location, I think, is a goal, not only for the practice, but for the tournament, or for the matches, right?
Well, wait a minute, we got this in there twice. One is upgrade our present ones, and one is develop new ones, or not?
New pickleball courts.
Well, I mean, we crossed out upgrade, John.
Yeah, but look at G.
Yeah, G is same as E.
Good, take it off.
Yeah, but do we have tennis courts there?
Well, okay, so
Yeah,
here's
we
what
already have two.
I made a mistake there, guys. I'm sorry.
We have
I
tennis
think-
courts, they're already upgraded? to
Right.
Help Glen Lake,
No,
No.
help anybody?
no, he just said eliminate one of those line items or combine the two of them.
Yeah, we crossed out the word upgrade because
That's
that's a done deal.
Yeah, I think you already upgraded those courts to the extent you're going to, right?
Yeah, they
Right.
might need it
So
again.
just-
I did add item F, develop new pickleball courts, and I would recommend you do 4 at a time or 2 at a time, do them in pairs. So whatever, at least put them on the plan that way.
That would be if new tennis courts were made, and you take the existing 2 and make them into pickleball courts.
It could be, right. It could be that the existing tennis courts get converted into pickleball. Should I add that into that line?
I think it's okay, develop new.
Or I could put comma.
However you wanna do it, it's
Convert
fine.
existing, possibly convert
And or
existing.
convert.
Okay. That's a good point, because your space is there. Okay. As new ones are built, okay.
It's, we might just decide to build the pickleball versus, and leave
The other
refurbished tennis there.
Because you don't know how long it's gonna take.
It's on the same side of the street as the playground equipment.
Right.
If you're doing family stuff
And I think that's part of the.
It makes sense
site
to have-
plan process.
makes sense, yeah.
It'll be figured out. We don't know the answers to all that now, and now is not the time necessarily to figure out. Okay, support stakeholder groups to maintain and promote Miles Kimberly Park Disc Golf Course. So I put that in because we didn't say anything about the disc golf course yet. I don't know a lot about it. I know that 2 guys came here specifically to talk about disc golf at Veronica Valley, though. And I think they play, and I found out recently how popular, I mean, disc golf is one of the most popular around, even after the storm damage. So it's really popular disc golf course because of the challenge level, I think, and the place. So I just want to submit to you that this committee at the least, or the county at the very least, should continue to support whatever those stakeholder groups are doing in whatever way you can. In that, let them come and talk to you, let them know what they may need from an institutional standpoint or approval standpoint. You know, they have 18 out there. I don't know if they'd ever come to you and say, could we do 9 more? I don't know. They might. There's more acreage out there, and you might not want that to happen. I don't know. Evaluate relocation, last one, of golf driving range in the eastern half of south parcels. So that was from the old Dusty plan about moving the driving range over and utilizing more of the park, the south parcel park here, and considering the safety implications if we weren't to do that where it is now relative to trails and ball fields. So maybe that could happen further over, and that would again be a part of the plan process. I might have missed a few that came up in this list in the corner, so we're going to double check that list for the physical active recreation features. One, for example, is we think that there's a restroom need further more centralized to the park, even though there's one potentially in this core area. We think that at least a single seat family style restroom should be implemented somewhere further over in the park. It's just the acreage is too big for little kids to be expected to hike it. Johnny's playing here, and Davey, the little 3-year-old's got to go potty here. His mom's pretty much out of luck. How do you take care of 2 kids at the same time when the potty facilities are so far apart? So you got to kind of deal with it that way, at least for a dream to do it someday. Okay, so you can add or subtract from that. We'll edit some more on that. Goal 3. What happened here?
We're still on Miles Kimmerly?
I'm on Miles Kimberly, page 64.
Well, looking at the concept plan, which is hopefully somewhat to scale, I seriously doubt that you can get 8 tennis courts in the area shown where 2 of them are now, and pickleball courts.
No, you can't. You're absolutely right. And I don't think they couldn't go there.
I don't think you can get 8 tennis courts in that area.
Right.
You're gonna put the new ones, yeah.
Well, I thought you were saying we want it on this side of the 6.
I think what we're saying is we don't know where they need to go yet, and definitely they wouldn't go where the existing ones go, but there might be a chance to get some in the active part of this park somewhere, if, for example, T-ball went away, and or there's a couple sites that are needed to be vetted more fully on the other side. You know, we wouldn't recommend that necessarily. We think they'd be better centralized on the active recreation side, but.
Well, if you eliminate the driving range, you put tennis courts.
Correct. Yep, you're trying to be a site designer, which is, you were all chomping at the bit to get at that plan, which is necessary soon. But, and we're not quite there, so we just have to kind of, what we try to do is get the programming out there. We need tennis courts, then we'll start figuring out where they
Go on
go.
the list.
Get on the list.
Put it where it needs to go later.
Yep, exactly. Unless you want to go down that path right now, which I don't think you want to do. It's too hard to, but you're absolutely right about it. We need to go through that in more detail. Okay, so where were we? 64. I was seeing something didn't look right on the next goal. Is it repeated?
Yeah, it seems to be.
Did I might have cut and pasted that wrong.
What do you got? What do you got for goal 1A? Goal 1A.
Yeah, it's the same.
Something.
For Miles Kimmerly?
Yeah, goal 1A, I thought you wanted to
Yeah,
have.
you know, I might have made a big boo-boo when I was trying to get this translated.
As goal 2A, I think.
I did have 3 goals for this, but now I'm not sure. But I think this whole part here on page 64 is a copy paste that I did wrong. Wait a minute though.
No,
It had some.
No, it's got, no, I take that back. Wait a minute, here we go. So this was focusing on the north side. Sorry, guys. This first statement isn't quite right. I need to reword the goal. But the objectives there are correct. So if you just take the first statement should say something about the north side parcels of 616 across the road. So I just separated that, okay, because there's different things going on there. So number 1 objective was to work with staff and stakeholder groups to reconform and determine upgrades and or repurposing of the existing paddocks. Okay, this stuff. Because right now, I don't have a clue as Joe Public what you're supposed to do here or not do here. And I'm not sure the best, highest and best use of this is happening, nor am I sure what the purposes are. I know someone told us last time there's some target practicing that's been requested and authorized to go on out there. But I also had heard, and I don't know that we want necessarily the ability for a paddock to be used from a 4-H group or from other standpoints out here to go away, but that facility is starting to age and it will become obsolete or non-functional if we don't figure out how to move it forward into the future. So that's why I did this, is to get us to start thinking about how this side works in the context and maximize your resource, that the least of which is all that and this. And to add to that, when we were out there, and you can see it in the pictures, we talked to the people doing the historic barn, that's got legs of its own. Great, let them go after it. Let them do what they're doing there. They got the community garden going on there. It's cool, and it should be celebrated. I saw some quotes from you in the article. We'll put it in the appendix. There's a really good article that came out in one of the papers not too long ago about all that effort. So, okay, so consider improved parking and internal vehicle circulation needs. So why I say that is, when you come out here, there aren't even drive cuts. You don't even know how or where to park here. If this were to be used for more things, and I get it, it's probably very casual or non-formal function, but if it were improved, how do we make that better there? Is it just
working with 4-H, and you could probably
stakeholder groups?
plug the group 4-H in.
Yep.
As to direction and refurbishing and where they see that going. That's really a very large percentage of what happens over there is 4-H.
Yes.
But
And
that,
consider that the 4-H part.
but as that said, that program, if I'm not mistaken, is not what it used to be, right? There had
No, it's charging forward.
Good. Well, then
It's as, I don't get, it's as strong as it's ever been.
Yeah.
okay.
4-H and Leelanau is strong.
But it's not, what that arena used to be used for is not what it is what it used to be.
Right. Was it a rodeo?
No, we used to have it was called Achievement Day there, and it was a time in the middle of summer for us to all go as a group and practice with our animals, and just like we're at the fair. But I don't know if that happens anymore or not.
Well, I think that's the point, is that we can get with that down the line, a goal to get with that group, figure out how to program this site better and what the facility could be going forward so that it's functional and it actually feels like it's part of the county park, because it is. I know you let them use it, but right now it feels like a lost stepchild that might not ever get any attention again, and I think that would be a sad thing to see happen, and probably not responsible to have happen under the county's auspices. So I guess I figured something simple there to encourage that group, and it might mean just like soccer at Miles Kimberly on the other side. Hey group, you guys have access to this, but it means you gotta mean it. You gotta tell us what your plan is for this property and how you intend to use it, and what help we might provide from a county standpoint to help you make it better than it is, because the upper paddock, for example, has totally gone off it's going fallow now, and it's a waste of space. It's fenced in, but it's not used for anything, and maybe it could be the target practice more formally, or maybe it could be something else. Maybe they don't need as much room anymore, so it's kind of wasted space. So it's just those kind of questions, I think, as part of the process. Consider equipment, fencing, upgrades, O&M equipment needs. So again, it's about, there's structures and shelters out there that people use and would need, if maybe or maybe not. We don't know. Improve partnerships with Leelanau Historic Preservation Society and other stakeholders for the historic pork farm restoration and community garden activities as an objective. I don't know what that specifically means. You've already supported it from a county level.
Yeah, there's not,
not much more you're going to do,
no.
except let them have a 30-year lease. Is that 25-year lease is already in place. But all it means is that I think generally their activities, I'm sure they have to come to you and say, we're planning to do A, or we're gonna do B, or we're gonna, I don't know how much they interact with you guys.
They interact with us a lot, they let us know what's going on pretty much every time.
So that's all we're talking about here is kind of
Not
keeping it.
necessarily, it's leased to them, it's their property, they kinda,
Right,
we don't approve or deny.
they're kind of the tenant, basically, let them.
Well, they just came to us about that driveway.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very transparent.
So I think it's just fitting right, what's happening is just being reiterated here. I don't think there's any major things. The one thing I did think about as we talked about tennis was, how does this thing relate? And it's a little confusing, because I think currently the folks that own this might lease this.
Yeah, but they didn't even, they brush hogged it this year, they didn't even.
So, again, this is county land, and if you don't know what, maybe there's some more discussion about what could happen here. I even thought about, is there a potential, because I've heard that this guy rides, or does something here,
Takes hay off.
or takes hay off. No, but I had heard that he rides his horse around the perimeter, maybe it's the guy in the barn. So he kind of has got his own little design on whatever's happening there, but it's county land, and that's fine, maybe that's all it ever has to be. But the point is that maybe leaving this in agricultural function and not becoming a spillover into here is one option, or having it be a spillover is another consideration. Do the tennis courts actually move over here, and do you actually have more functional park space on this side of the road? Those are two distinct decision paths that I think need to be evaluated. Because it matters how the rest of this thing can get planned out. And that's it. That's Miles Kimberly. Are you just stretching?
No, I got a question. When we looked over the Veronica Valley one, and then I look here at this Miles Kimberly, coming from how we used to do goals and objectives, you have a goal, and then your objectives are written underneath it. In this case, you got goals that's got about 4 objectives underneath it. Let's look at goal 2, for example. Provide an upgraded facility for people to utilize it. Well, then you got work with staff and stakeholders as a goal. Consider O&M needs as a goal. Consider expanding parking as a goal. Those should all be objectives. You got
The ones that have dots are objectives, sorry. The way that I intended that to read was under the goal, the bulleted ones were just general statements, objectives, and maybe I should say that. And then, that's why this is, I see what you're saying. That shouldn't say objectives, it should say probable actions.
Yes.
Possible actions, that's written wrong there.
So, as you go through all your couple of pages, and I know we corrected it when we were in Veronica Valley, but it didn't get to you.
Right.
But your goal shouldn't have all these little things underneath it. Your goal is a big bold print. Should be one big large sentence.
Well, that's fine, we could just change, here's what I think we
And
can
then
do.
look at some of these and put them under.
Whether they go into, it's very difficult sometimes to determine whether an objective is too broad or is it too specific, you know what I mean?
Well,
Because-
there's goal and objectives and action items have to get done every year. But you don't want to get into that kind of detail
I
because you're
don't-
not in business to make
So,
money.
just so I'm clear though, so like here,
Provide an upgraded facility for people.
that's the goal, and then we could either change these into just
Correct.
general objectives, and then this one I'm going to reword, it should be written as possible actions.
Could be, yeah.
Like we did for Veronica.
Determine best location for UA family. Well, that's not a goal, that's an action item.
Yeah, it could
You
be.
know, see what I mean?
Yeah.
Should have goal, yeah, he'll take care of it.
Yeah, he's on the same page now.
All right.
He's
I
picking up what you're doing.
miswrote that action objective should actually say actions, possible actions, not objective. Like we did.
Oh, I see, yeah, I see, I didn't catch that.
I just did this,
Thought I said
I did a semantic group up on.
And it kinda, all 3 of them kinda should be
Yep.
that way.
Yeah, no, we can fix that, absolutely. So I think, the way, it just didn't word it the same way as the original one, the original, Veronica Valley one.
That's what we're here for.
Well, I got a bunch
I
of
don't
other
think
things.
it's I worded it, I call it possible.
$1 worth?
actual actions here, and I don't call them action objectives, that kind
All
of.
the editorial parts.
Yeah, a lot of
It's not my
editorial
words.
road stuff,
So-
and what's a DNR landing, what isn't.
Yeah. Okay, so.
I'm not gonna go over all that with you guys.
Where do we go from here? We got a couple more minutes to sort of wrap this up, and I know it's a lot of information and a lot going on, but
You
I'm
did a lot.
hoping, I hope you're getting the sense of how much has to get vetted here, and you're an integral part of it, but we'll be able to whip this up and get it refined enough to put out tomorrow. It mostly was a lot of formatting and trying to take what was good and bad of the old plan and get it reconstituted and reformatted for use. And so now we're into the fun part for the next month. We're gonna really focus on getting exactly from the input and from your input, these things nailed down and the action program set up. And then those two pieces of the plan are your X's and O's charts that you go out and take your, at your meetings, you start working on things, adjusting things. It's a working document, a living document that can keep going. So, but the neat thing is, like I said, and Kyle will be a good testament to that, is that in 5 years down the line, and you won't be on the committee at that point, the next plan update, half that stuff goes away, or more than half of it goes away because you've accomplished it because you set the goals, right, Clayton? Miles Kimberly will get worked, it will. Tick those suckers right off. But you gotta get a plan in order to get there.
Clayton's gonna stay on this group until we get at least one of those goals done.
I'd like to pick on Old Settlers just for a minute to see whether you should put it as a goal. I was looking for the map, because you've been on Old Settlers for a while. Should you guys have it as an action item to look into getting rid of that parcel across the road? And don't have to answer it today, but could it be something that, we ought to start looking at that?
You could.
And have it as, I didn't see it on here, but I was looking at your map.
We didn't
I have to look
put it
back
on
into
there.
the
Oh, yeah.
Right.
regulations of the donation and all that.
I understand, but it still could be going on and on for 5 years. Let's look at this, and oh yeah, we'd have to do a legal thing because it was donated. And I was just wondering, otherwise no one's gonna look at it, and we don't have an answer.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if it needs to be a goal in there, but,
Not a goal, maybe an action item.
yeah.
I think there was a lease involved. Seems like Melinda, check with Melinda, she may have looked into that. It's on the job.
What's that? There's the parcel goes across the road to the south. It's basically just a big.
Trying to find a map, there's a parcel
and there's
across the
it's
road.
Makes like a little triangle
I think
across
I
the
like the word
road
those
of property.
intentions.
You're right.
Small.
I agree.
Oh, you're talking
About 1 million.
Oh, I know.
I wrote it.
Now, we're done with my opinion.
I just kind of started confused.
So it's been brought up before of trying to get rid of it or do something with it, which it's not really developed.
So it was in a few meetings, somebody wanted something to do with it. I can't remember what we told them.
The owners across the road probably would like to
Seems
buy
like
it.
if there's a long lease on it or something.
Yeah,
There was
Does that
something
ring a
was
bell?
a couple of years ago, we were looking.
I can look into it
There's
and see if it's
a
even a
couple.
possibility, and
I mean,
if it is, then we can look at the action. I don't know if I wanna get rid of it.
Yeah, that's enough.
I don't, we don't, it'd be nice to park there,
Yeah,
but it goes through people's land. Well, you got a month to look into it, I guess.
There was a easement across.
Yeah, there's an easement for those people that live up
Yeah.
there.
This is the budget. So Laurel, am I correct in
There's
Turn it
a-
over.
those are
just the bottom line of this
Turn-
thing?
Turn it over.
It's not in
Yeah.
there. I
No,
saw
turn
it
it-
someplace else.
There you go.
Yeah.
There it is.
The
There's a-
backside has the totals.
Yeah, there's a final on the very bottom of page 2.
I saw it someplace else, but it's not
Spend
here enough.
total 160.
What's the little triangle?
So, you wanna build a house there, or what?
Is that, I gave you the draft 2020.
Good place to put mattresses and sofas.
Yeah.
Tires.
burn them.
Right on top of the monkey flower that's over there.
That's
No, that's where my
Oh,
gear
no.
Yeah,
bag
right
is.
there,
Not
167.
Mr. the monkey's fault.
That's, this is for your discussion.
I bet most people don't have any idea that this
It's
is
in this.
part of the
I
problem?
think we are done. You're done 18 minutes before we need to be.
Hey, all the maps and pictures?
Yes.
Well,
Help a lot.
Now, is anybody else
I
coming
know,
for
we
the
try to
3
make it
o'clock?
very visual, so that way
Is Melinda coming for the 3 o'clock?
that'll get people to
I'm
do
not
stuff.
sure.
We could start at 3 o'clock.
No, you can't.
No, we
You
can't
have to
start
at
till
three.
10.
Oh, really?
So is there a comment?
No, we gotta finish, we got a board member comments, are there any more comments? Public comment, and we say motion to adjourn?
You wanna keep?
We are
Figure out what gets the other things. You wanna keep-
No,
We gotta wait till
another meeting?
If we have to. We can start later than 3, but we
I'm on
can.
a mail, my comments to you. I'll go home and work on them tomorrow morning. Just drop in the mail.
Appreciate that, sir.
It's like the military, smoke them.
That's what we need, appreciate that.
You just give it to him, yeah.
Put your name on
Is
it.
Chet in this office?
You can check, he had to go off-site for a bit, but
Okay.
he might be back.
Hope
Yes.
The roads look great, man.
Aren't they something? Just unbelievable.
You saw the
this
work.
You do a fine job.
We did like
Yeah. She
40
did
miles
some
of
work.
tar and chipping and what really makes what neat is when you put
Lots
that
of little.
black
Yeah.
stuff over.
Yeah.
You know, what really makes the road neat.
Thank you for
is
digging
when it
into it.
rains,
Yeah.
it rains
Very
all.
helpful.
You know, that's actually,
Thanks, Laurel.
it took them a long time
We'll
to
get you-
convince me